Welcome to the Speckle Park podcast, where we look behind the scenes at the incredible breed designed to maximise profit, minimise inputs to build a high-performance commercial herd. This episode is sponsored by Speckle Park, bred for lasting performance. For first access to sale information, visit jadspecklepark.com.au and subscribe to become a Jad Insider.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Speckle Park podcast. This week we have Dennis Power, who is General Manager of one of the largest Speckle Park stud and commercial herds in the world, Minnamurra Speckle Park. Based at Coolah in Central West New South Wales, Minnamurra Speckle Park has played a pivotal role in demonstrating the commercial relevance of the Speckle Park breed, winning various feedback trials and carcass competitions. Welcome to the Speckle Park podcast, Dennis.
Thanks, Amy.
Dennis, tell us about your childhood. What was your earliest agricultural memory, and did anything from your childhood inspire you to take the career path you chose?
Well, I was born in Griffith in New South Wales and grew up on a family farm there. My dad selected one there, being a World War II veteran. And, right from my earliest days, I just loved farm life. And Mum got to the stage that if I was ever missing, she'd find out where Dad was, and then she knew I'd be somewhere between him and home. So really my earliest recollections of it, golly, go way back to being with him on a horse and leading me around the place and whatnot, because I was developing irrigation and everything in that area at the time. And we had no motorbikes or quad bikes or side-by-sides, and there was only push bikes and horses that got us around. So, yeah, I've had a life on the land all my life. I've never ever wanted anything else but that. My father was a very good stockman, and it's always just been a part of me, Amy, yeah.
Can you provide listeners with an overview of your career to date?
Yeah, right. It's been going for a while now. I started on the family farm in Griffith. I was there with Mum and Dad on that place till I was a bit over 20. I was 21 or 22, and I always wanted to go west, into the bigger areas and into the stock areas. And in about 77, I bought a small block at Hillston of our own there. Once again, sheep and cattle, and I did a lot of stock contracting in that area over the years. Everything from mustering to a lot of sheep work those days. It was big sheep areas. We were there for 10 years in Hillston, and basically I've been involved with stock all my life. We moved on from there through a couple of different places, and the really high interest rates in the early 80s sort of put us out of business when interest rates went through the roof to, over 20%. We were young and borrowing money. And we sold out and moved on. So we had to make a new life for ourselves. And I was offered a position down at Ravensworth at Hay at the time. The Americans owned it then, McCarthy Brothers, and was managed by good friends of ours. So I went down there to run their cattle operation, and I think at the time they were running about 10 or 12,000 just turning steers over on grass. I was only there 12 months or so, and they sold out to Bankers Trust, and then Bankers Trust really upped the ante, and they were at that time were at that stage where the marbling and the Angus cattle, they were pushing it like heck. The marbling thing was really starting to come in. Yeah, I learned a lot out of that venture. We were turning over around 25,000 steers a year off grass, all basically black, and then got to the stage of building our own trial feed yards there and taking them through. Their aim was to try and grow these black cattle through to 300 day and 300 and 400 day fed cattle and get the marbling and whatnot into them. Well, I learned a lot out of that and got a lot out of it. I seen so many black calves coming through the market. We're buying cattle from all over the eastern states and a lot even out of Tasmania. So I've seen a lot of different breeds and lines of black cattle come through, and just observing the different styles of black cattle, which in turn over the years I applied to where we are now, and the type of cattle that I thought would suit the industry in the long term. So, yeah, that's been, and then I've been with Minnamurra for the last, 27 years now. Yeah, that's basically a rough overview of where I've been, yeah. Yeah, there's an awful lot in between, of course.
What has been your favourite job you've held and why?
Oh, well, obviously Minnamurra with the Reed family, Amy. It's been, just such a wonderful family to work for and work with. The changes in agriculture in the, nearly 3 decades that I've been with them, the changes in the cattle industry, we've had big growth in this company, and the confidence that the Reed family have had in me, which I can't believe, for an old saddle jerker like me. I mean, and the changes we've had. The Speckle Park Challenge, which is just something that I never dreamed of. I was a commercial man all my life. And then after finding these and David wanting to take up the challenge as well, there's been some pretty exciting times. We've seen a lot of changes in the industry since I've been in it. Yeah, so definitely Minnamurra.
What led to your career with Minnamurra Pastoral Company? And can you please provide an overview of the Minnamurra business?
It's quite a long story, actually, but a good friend of ours gave me a ring out of the blue one night. So I left for Ravensworth after 4 or 5 years, and I took a position with New Haven Park Thoroughbred Stud, which was really interesting. I think at the time they were about the 3rd biggest thoroughbred stud in the country, and that was an interesting part of our life. It's very hard going, that thoroughbred industry, but it taught me a lot about attention to detail and a lot about breeding. And then when I was with them, I got a call one night from this friend that was managing different agricultural companies, and he said that he'd just taken on a particular new company and wanted to know whether I was interested in running it for them. And I came down because I wanted to get back into the cattle, and I came down and had an interview, and I think that was in about 77. Well, Bruce at the time, David's father, was the principal of the company, the one that started it all, and a wonderful, wonderful man. We had a great relationship with Bruce, and it's just grown since then.
Can you please provide that overview of the Minnamurra business?
When I first started with them, Amy, in 97, they had the Cortina property at Willar, sort of east of Mudgee. We developed that into a very good Angus herd. We were running around 6,000 head all up down there. And David I think Bruce had that for 20-odd years before I started with them. So anyway, Bruce passed away it would have been about 2004, I think. And I thought, oh, golly, what's going to happen here? Because I never knew David very well at all, and David was the one to take the reins of the rural side of the operation. So David came out, we had a meeting, and I thought, oh, golly, this is going to be a big job. I thought they'll probably want to sell it all. But no, David sat down and said the opposite to me. He said, Dennis, why do you think we should keep the agricultural side of it, and what do you think the future of it is? So we had a good discussion about that, and to my surprise, David was wonderful, and we kept on growing from there. The mines bought us out the late 2000s, bought the property out, but we leased it back. And from then on, when we started to develop, we finished up with a couple of places in Queensland and out at Walgett. And when we were at our peak, Amy, I think we were running around 20,000 head of cattle with 38 or 40,000 sheep and cropping about 10,000 acres. That's going back 10, 12 years ago now. But, I think with Norma leased a property out at Cunnamulla, they're all up. We had about 400,000 acres under management. From there, that shocking drought hit everybody there. The live cattle export dropped out of Northern Territory, which was a massive blow to all that Western country at the time. So we sort of wound down a bit and came back into the Southern country. We sold Almara, the place at Jurumbandy we had, and then but then we bought a place at Purley-War, which is just east of Coonabarabran. We've got another place over on the Bundella Creek over near on the other side of the range from here. we sold, I'm probably jumping the gun a bit there because we bought all that country at Boggabri. We put together 30-odd thousand acres of country there, about 8 or 9 different soldier settlement blocks, which run from the Cox's Creek right back to the edge of the Pilliga. And then in 2016 we sold that out, and that's when we moved in here and bought Mount Mill and then joined these other places onto that. And the Speckle Parks, they started in 2011 after a trip of mine to America and Canada. But yeah, and they've become a very big part of the business now.
Can you tell us about that introduction to the breed back in 2011, how that came about?
Yeah, in 2010, Amy, David shouted me a trip over to America and into Canada to have a look at the cattle industry. So we went through sort of the Midwest of America, seen a lot of different properties and feedlots and whatnot through there. And, and then the American industry was much like I thought it would be. But the trip actually finished up at the Calgary Stampede, and while at the Stampede, which was a fantastic end to a trip for me, a dream, a friend that was on the bus tour with us wanted to go and have a look at these Speckle Park cattle. And I thought I knew every breed of cattle that was in the country, in the world, but I never knew of these. So very interested to go and have a look, and very impressed with what I saw, knowing nothing about them. Spoke with a couple of the breeders there now that you know and I know very well now. And the interesting part I found was that the carcass competition that they were mainly there for, the Speckle Park breeders, they'd won it for 4 or 5 or 6 years in a row. And I thought, golly, this is interesting. So I sort of, after we'd left, I still followed the results through to see how they went, and they won it again that year. I thought, this is really, really interesting stuff. I said, why? Because, they were basically a British-bred animal with a different colour in their structure and everything. And I thought, golly, what's under that skin that's making the difference? So we did a fair bit more research on them. And when I came home and I was telling David, when we got back, I'm telling David about it, and I thought, we found this animal that for some reason has got fantastic eating quality, taste unbelievable. His dressing percentage, I remember that steer at Calgary, that's what blew me away. The dressing percentage of that steer was well up in the 60, I just forget now, God, this is going back 12 years ago only. I think it was 63 or 65% or something, but the meat yield was amazing. And I thought, golly, there's a place for these cattle. It'd be interesting to cross them over. We had very good Tamonia blood cows. I'd be interested to see the cross and see the result. So once again, David, having far too much confidence in me, said, okay, let's give it a go. We'll give it a go for 4 or 5 years, see how we go with it. If we don't think it works, we can soon change back. But if it works, we'll keep going. Well, obviously it's worked, Amy, and so we've kept going, and that's where basically we started the carcass competition going in them from, because I was a big believer in not only that, people can get blinded by their own figures. If you don't benchmark them against something else, you can get blinded very, very quickly. So that's where I started the carcass competition thing from, to be able to benchmark your cattle against all the other breeds. Mm-hmm. And as you know, that was quite successful for us.
Yeah, most certainly. So when you first came across these Speckle Park cattle, for those who aren't aware, the breed first came to Australia in 2008. So it was very much in its infancy. You were very much one of the early adopters of the breed in Australia.
Yep, no, you did right there.
What are your breeding objectives at Minnamurra Speckle Park, and what do you do to help achieve those?
My breeding objectives, Amy, is always to breed good females. Without good females, you've got nothing. I think too many people put far too much emphasis on these breeding males, because that's what they're selling. They're selling either bulls or they're selling steers. But without those good mothers, you've got nothing. I don't care how good the bull is. He's still only 50%. So that's my objectives, is to breed good females.
How would you define a good female in your operation?
Fertility and maternal traits are the two greatest things in females. I had a very wise man tell me quite a few years ago, he was a very good vet. He said, Dennis, The two hardest things to breed into a line of females is maternal traits and fertility. He said the two easiest things to breed out of them, maternal traits and fertility.
So true.
And you have to be ruthless with both those traits. I think a lot of people tend to put the cart before the horse. Without those two traits, you've got nothing. And that's very hard. You start your breeding program, you must get live calves on the ground. I don't care what sort of cattle you're breeding. Without live calves, you've got nothing. So you've got to be ruthless and get that right. And that's a big job. It's a hard job and it takes a long time. No breeding program is an overnight thing. So they're my main breeding objectives, is to get very good females on the ground, and then the bull thing will happen, and having the right bulls, of course, to go over those. That's something we could talk about for a long time, but they're the two basic things I feel that is the bottom line of every breeding herd.
I think what I most respect about your program is that you take a very commercial approach with that. I think a lot of studs somehow justify in their own heads that the stud herd is different and should be run differently to a commercial herd. But when we're trying to sell bulls to commercial operators, should they not be treated the same with the same approach to culling?
Yeah, that's right, Amy. And I think there's a question you might have been going to ask me about peers. And, besides my father, I've never had too many real great peers. I've learned a lot off a lot of people. But, a wonderful man, Andrew Gubbins from Tamania Stud. I love listening to that man. He said to me once that, is there anything we can do for you, Dennis? Are we breeding the right time? Where do you want us to go? Or I thought, I've never forgot that, Amy. Here's one of the best stud operators that I know who was asking the commercial people, are we breeding the right animal for you?
Excellent.
As you just said, I think far too many stud people go out to the commercial people and say, look, this is what we've got. This is a great bull. This is what we're doing. This is what you should have. No, the stud people must go to the commercial people and ask them what they want. And then you breed the animals for them. That's the way I feel anyway. Of course, the commercial industry in Australia is, it's a totally different world here to Canada. That's what we're breeding cattle for our big commercial industry. Yeah, that's the way I feel.
For the podcast signature question, how would you answer the question, why Speckle Park?
There's a lot of reasons why Speckle Park. And we've still got to go down the track and fairway yet before we'll get right on top of it. But we're finding that they're definitely increasing their dressing percentages. We've got all those good qualities that we know, their dressing percentages. Their feed conversion is terrific. I've found we've been through some pretty tough times just since 2011 when we brought these in, those severe droughts and whatnot. They're very tough, very resilient animals. There's no doubt about that. I've fed the cows, Speckle Park cows, against other Angus and British bred cows during the droughts. Their food intake is definitely less. And I think there's some of the characters that in the cattle that have actually been advantages from Canada is that what makes them so hardy and so tough. As a good cattleman in Canada said to me, he said, Dennis, we only get 2 seasons over here. We get 5 months, we get 7 months of winter and 5 months to get ready for winter. Well, in that 5 months where they've got grass and feed, those cattle have got to do like steam. They've got to come in good order for winter. They can't come in poor. Because my godfather, you know what their winters are like over there, and when it gets down to -50, you don't want to be skin and bone. So those cattle have got to come in, and they do. They pick up exceptionally quick. They come in, they go through that hard time. And another thing I've said to people quite often asked, and you've probably been asked the same question, how do they handle the heat? Well, that's not a problem. We've had them out of Cunnamulla and Jirrambandi in Queensland, and the dry heat. Don't expect British breeds to handle the humidity, but as I've said, it takes a lot more energy to repel cold than it does to repel heat, and I think that's where they handle the heat a lot better. They're the reasons that I think there's a real place for these cattle in that their doing abilities is very, very good. The carcass results we're getting from them is fantastic. Their eating quality is outstanding, and we've got a few problems that we've got to sort out, and it's going to take a while. We've got to breed these cattle now for Australian conditions, and you don't do that overnight. and you have to be ruthless. That's probably the reason, a lot of people have said, why are you trying to get, so many female numbers? But without getting female numbers, Amy, we can't. It's very hard to follow breed lines to track any of those bad qualities. So maternal traits of fertility, you can, you just have to be ruthless and chop heads off. And that's, you can give them second chances. I've done it for a while here in that we'll do AI work in the spring and any that, 30-40% that we don't get in calf with the AI work, we'll give them a natural joining in the autumn. And if they don't go in calf to the bulls, well, then they're gone. They've had their two chances. But as we go along now, we're going to cull harder and harder on those qualities. But I think they're the main problems. I think we've got enough good breeding in this country now that you've got to stay with that, because if we go back and pull any of that breeding back, I hate to say it, but we're going to run back into the same problems. But we'll still get a few genetics from Canada every now and then. But gee, we've got the best of their genetics out here at the moment. So we'll just see how it goes.
Now it's about refining the article to suit that unique Australian environment.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's it. And that's, as you know, that doesn't happen overnight.
No.
You've got to be very patient in breeding.
That's it. What has been the highlight of Minnamurra Speckle Park's journey so far?
Seeing the results that we are getting in our commercial herd, it's always exciting, and seeing the improvements in your cattle as they come along. I mean, and we've still got a lot of improvements to do yet.
Well, if we look at some of those successes you've had with your commercial cattle in feedback trials, for example.
That's right. Yeah, they're the sort of things that do excite you.
Yeah. If we look at the feedback trial results you've had success in, such as the RNA Brisbane Royal Show's paddock to plate competition and beef spectacular feedlot trial at Jindalee feedlot, can you detail some of that success over the years?
Yeah, well, I started them in 2013. I think we went in our first one, but started with the beef spectacular in 2015, which, we weren't into the breed very, very long then. And, they had 400 odd head in it, and our first outing with them, we got a first, second and a third in the carcass competition, third in the team's performance, third and fourth in the feedlot performance. I mean, I thought, golly, we're putting these cattle in to benchmark them, and we've done this against all them southern cattle. Then so I went in there again in 16, and we got first in the carcass competition, and a couple. There was something like 76 teams of 5 head per team in those, so they were, it wasn't out of a handful. We also went in the RNA, the big one up at Brisbane in 16, and this is where we got the first in the MSA meat eating water quality in the 70-day trade cattle, and that's when this the MSA meat eating quality award really started to hit home with us. The same year at Gympie we got the highest index score award, 17 first place, pen of 6 carcasses, second place, first and second there. RNA 18, highest individual index in the 100-day. 19, highest individual index score in the 70-day, first in the MSA Meat Eating Quality Award, first in the MSA Eating Quality Award 100-day. So I'll just finish this anyway. In 2020, we got champion carcass at the RNA, 100-day, third in the pen of 6 carcasses, 100-day. National beef carcass competition, the national one, 5th and 8th place in a pen of 3 carcasses. So, and then in 21, we got the highest individual index score again, second and third in the MSA meat eating quality in the 100-day class, highest individual index score in the 70-day class, first in the MSA meat eating quality award 70-day class. Well, and reserve champion carcass. Well, there's in that competition up there, Amy, there's something like 700-800 head of cattle in that over the 2 or 3 different classes. So those sort of results, particularly when you understand how important that MSA index score is, it's everything now.
Yes.
These cattle that we fed, as you said, I mean, we fed 1,500 odd there that year, but we had this 100 or 600 odd that we put through that we'd fed for 150 days. Those cattle now, they were crossbred cattle, all by Speckle Park sires. But I think I've got a little bit of a list here. We had 108 go through in one kill, MSA index of 64.7, another 145, 63, 147, 68. And as we know, the MSA index score only goes to 70. Pardon me, we had several steers when you go through the kill sheets that actually hit 70. Wow. We had steers in there that we had, with those average marbling scores of 3.7 or 2.6 and nearly 3, we had marbling scores in there, several. At the highest one was 8, or there were several 8s, but we had plenty of 5s, 6s and 7s. So, and these were still only just milk teeth, just breaking their teeth. So, they showed us a lot. I think in 150 days, their average fat cover was only 23 mil.
Yeah, that's it. It's brought up time and time again how these cattle finish so well but don't blow out in the fat specs.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the difference. We fed them against our other black British bred cattle and, fed them together, the same pens, and they definitely come in with probably 3 to 4 mil less fat. No doubt about that. And they are incredible fat covers at 23, for a 150-day fed calf.
Yeah. I think with those feedback trial results, it's one thing to have success in a given year, but to go back to back like you have, it's quite extraordinary.
Well, and the thing that we like, Amy, is I was only talking with David this morning about it. We've just put another couple of pens in it up there now. They're never our best cattle. They're the middle of the road cattle because the specs blow us out. Our cattle, the lead of our cattle are too heavy for their weight to go in, so they're the middle of the road. And I think also, Amy, a lot of people lose sight of carcass competitions in that you should be using them as a benchmark for your cattle. And by breeding a lot of cattle, particularly to go into a carcass competition, having them scanned and all that type of thing to put your best in, you're really not achieving anything. You're achieving the accolades of winning it possibly and whatnot, but you're not achieving the information that I feel you need to better your herd. So these awards that these cattle have achieved are the middle of the road type cattle for us. So, well, when you see those results, it verifies why we're staying with Speckle Park.
For sure. I understand that you had Meat and Livestock Australia carry out benchmarking analysis of 430 Minnamurra Speckle Park Angus Cross long-fed bodies. What did that analysis covering 2021 to 2023, what did that show?
Well, you've probably got it there. I might have to get you to answer it because I do know, but I can't remember the exact figures. But and I never had time to gather it all. I'm sorry.
I do have it here, Dennis, and can share that time frame 2021 to 2023 financial years. The average MSA index nationally was 57.45. In New South Wales, it was 59.31. The top 25% nationally was 61.18 and the top 25% in New South Wales was 62.03. Minnamurra, across 430 bodies, averaged 63.67. That's MSA index.
I've sort of got that 63 point. I had that one, but I couldn't remember the other figures, Amy. We were really stoked with those figures when they come through, and they were done completely independently. We knew nothing about it or anything.
Hot standard carcass weight for Minnamurra averaged 365.9, ossification 151, MSA marble score 530. The New South Wales grain-fed top 50% male was 430, so you were a neat 100 above that for MSA marble score.
We're quite happy about it. I'm sorry, I just haven't got those figures sitting here in front of me. And I can't get them up on the computer because I'm talking to you. Yeah.
Okay. We can deal with that. I can help you with that. It's interesting, Dennis. I'm looking at this document, which is free for anybody to read and assess. It's on the Minnamurra website, and it's capped at the top with better carcasses, better yields for better profits, and that really sums it up, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's breeding what's under the skin, Amy. You and Justin know that. Quite often people say, they talk about the colour, I like the white ones, or I like the speckle ones or the leopard ones. I said, look, it's what's under the skin is what we're breeding. And thank God today for all the objective measurement and everything we can do today, how important that is as far as breeding programs going today, with breeding what's under that skin. Yeah.
That's it. Well, at the end of the day, it's such an expensive protein for the consumer to choose when they've got pork and chicken as an option. We better make sure it's good.
That's
it's
right.
beef.
Yep.
How many trips have you made overseas to research Speckle Park genetics, and what has been the value in making those trips?
Golly, I'm not sure, but I think it's something like about 10 trips over the years that I've gone backwards and forwards. I think the biggest advantage is just sort of benchmarking once again where our cattle are going against what they're breeding over there still. And our cattle in Australia anyway are definitely 1 to 1.5 frame score bigger than the Canadian cattle, and the same genetics are growing out bigger here, and that's mainly because of climate, I've got no doubt. I think we have to go back every now and then and just have a look to see if they've got that new bull that's there that might be able to enhance our operations somehow or other. It's hard too because some of the breeders over there now are doing it, but they don't have the figures in the background, and unfortunately they can't have once again, here I go back on the commercial game. They can't have the results of big kills over there because they just haven't got that big commercial operation like we've got. But
you hear people say from time to time that we need to expand the gene pool in Speckle Park and that it's not big enough. And I kind of scratch my head at that commentary a little. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I'm a bit like you there. I think we're a totally different ball game to what it was going back to, say when the Murray Greys, they were probably the last new breed in Australia. We've got all the embryo and AI work and everything now that we can store so much semen and bring it out down the track, whereas going back then, it had to be all bull matings. But I think we've got the gene pool to do it. I mean, the bulls are out there. There's no doubt about that. It's just going through them, and we're getting better and better and better all the time. The improvement in the quality of bulls, over the last 10, 15 years in Australia, has just been unbelievable. I remember what the first ones were like I only had a guy here the other day who I knew very well had seen the first ones we had, and he was saying he can't believe the difference in the quality of the animals now compared with what they were 10, 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And well, you would hope, you'd like to think that's what's happening. No, I think we're going all right. Well, we might have to go and get one. It's hard without figures. I mean, we're putting all these figures together on all our animals here in Australia, and you've got to go back and get a bull and start again without anything. It makes it a bit tough.
Well, I think when I think of the value in making those trips overseas, obviously there's the cattle side of it, Dennis, but I do think of late night Vancouver airport sessions and trying to jam 4 Australians in a very small taxi on one of our trips over there together.
With an Indian driver. No shock absorbers in the back of it.
None whatsoever. Oh, funny. Good fun. What should Speckle Park breeders be doing more of or differently to share the breed story, and especially the commercial relevance of the breed?
It's a hard one, Amy. We've all got our different views on that, and I respect everybody's view. I just can't get enough figures. I mean, you've got to get figures, and getting it out there to let people really see it. It's very difficult without numbers, as you know. and supply. It's a slow, tough game. As I said, it's a hard one to answer. I know from our point of view is that what we're trying to do now is get the biggest commercial Speckle Park line of females that we can get. And, we've got a lot of second, third cross females now in our herds. And I think that you may have asked me this before, but the purebred, is the purebred going to be as good as our crossbred cattle? Well, we're not going to know that because we're losing that hybrid vigor, and I think we'd like to know that as soon as we can. I mean, for instance, we're going to downsize our stud operation because we've got so many purebred females that we'd like to bring our female herd back to probably about 150, 160 cows. But the excess females that we've got, we want to sort of put them into an elite commercial herd. So it'll be interesting to see when we start to kill those, to see the results, because nobody's been able to do that to a big extent. Another extremely pleasing result we get is whenever we've sold our cold purebred cows and F1 cows, we put a B double load of cows through a works here a while back, and they were purebred cows that we just culled. And they said it was the first time they'd ever had a full B double load of cows go through that all went MSA, which unbelievable. I mean, the cows can do it as well, your cull cows. But it's a hard one because everybody's got their own different ideas. But we just got to try and get these cattle out there, get the numbers up so that we can, get them out there into the market, get them out there into the marketplace, get them into the restaurants, get them. I think the restaurant trade will be, a huge place for these.
Get Speckle Park beef branded as such. That's the goal, isn't it?
Yeah. No, if we can get we've still got to have the numbers though to supply it, Amy. That's always the scary part. But
for sure.
Yeah.
What role does data and objective measurement play in your decision-making processes in your stud, and why?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, you know what I'm like with that. And I'll mention it all the way through figures. It means everything. I always said in 2010 when we started with these cattle, I said, I need me head read. I said, here I am, a bloke that's built an Angus herd and everything on data, on figures. I've gone and taken on a new breed that's got nothing. And I said, and as you and Justin know, you guys have as well, and we've put a lot of work in to try and get as many figures as we can. And we're still only just starting it. I mean, they mean everything. I mean, how do you go and acquire a sire without figures? I mean, as I said earlier there, we're breeding what's under the skin. We want to breed maternal traits. We want to breed fertility. Get them first, and then let's start on all the other things. I think there's probably far too much emphasis put on marbling today in breeding cattle in Australian conditions. We're very lucky with these cattle because these cattle seem to have a natural marbling ability that's, if we enhance that, that'll be great. But if you focus, if you try and focus too much on one thing, you let the rest all fall apart. But figures are everything. I mean, we've got David's built our own program for here, which is fantastic. And we've got all our cows now through his figures. We've got them all classed from 1 to whatever. And we're getting that because we document everything from their frame scores, their calves, their AI work, gestation length. There's another one. I mean, that is just so important. I feel that gestation length is overlooked by far too many people too, in that they focus on birth weights, and your early gestation calves, you usually no trouble at all. And there's an unbelievable gap in these cattle in their gestation length. So now without collecting all these figures and all this data, how do you know where you're going or what you're doing? It's just so important. And, the eyes you've still got to be a cattleman. I mean, you can't just go and buy on figures. I mean, you buy on figures, you'll finish up in a hell of a mess. You still have to go and look at, I used to go to sales once, Amy, and take a catalogue that, God, I defaced it something awful. I had pen marks and texture marks all over the bloody thing. And anyway, after a few years, I realised, what the hell am I doing that for? Because you walk in there and all them ones you had ticked off are all, you don't want them anyway. And I soon learnt that you walk into the yard when you see, you've got 8 or 10 bulls in there or whatever, that one or two that strike your eye, then open your catalogue and have a look at him and hope he matches what you're hoping he will in the figure department. You still have to look at the cattle. And
that's it. I think what's really exciting about this breed, Dennis, is that it is already so good, as demonstrated by your back-to-back wins in feedback trials, etc., without an awful lot of science having gone into it to date. So how exciting is it for the future and what's possible?
Oh, exactly. I mean, that's what gets us going on it. It's, as I said to you earlier, I said I want to be head red going into a breed that had no figures behind it at all. So the way to start getting them, Amy, was to benchmark them in these feedlots. Without all that, why would we have the confidence to keep going with them? Those feedlot trials and whatnot, they gave us the confidence, to keep going, to know that we're on track to breeding the right, the cattle that we wanted to breed and the cattle that the Australian industry want. So, figures are just so important, and they don't lie. I mean, people say, oh, you can juggle figures. Well, you can juggle them if you like, but they'll come back to bite you within a couple of years very, very quickly. You can't go selling stud cattle on fibs, because it will come back to bite you. There's no doubt about that.
Anyone who truly understands and respects the role of objective measurement would never do that anyway, because that defeats the whole purpose. Exactly. And, you're only kidding yourself. That's it. What knowledge and experiences from your farm management positions have you brought forward to assist you as a cattle stud manager?
I think probably the main one here is just having the experience in the commercial industry. I've been very fortunate in my life to have virtually mustered cattle from the top of the Cape right to the high country in Victoria, and had cattle on adjustment all over the countryside, and looked and appreciated at all different breeds of cattle. I think seeing the Australian commercial industry right across the board with all the different breeds, the Bos Indicus and the Bos Indicus crossbreeds, the Euro cattle, the cattle that suit different areas, and it's very hard you don't take Bos Indicus cattle down to Victoria and try and do a job with them, and vice versa sort of thing. So you learn to appreciate the different areas of Australia, the cattle that are suited for different climates and different markets. I think without that experience of being involved in that industry for so long and over such a vast area, I think over the years, Amy, here we've bought cattle out of every state in Australia, and trading cattle with Minnamurra. I think we did. We got a wing out of Western Australia at one stage, but I think that's probably been the biggest thing, and just learning the commercial industry and being involved in it for so long, it definitely gives you a big insight to where you're going and where you want to be marketing and what you want to market. Yeah.
What has been the most influential Speckle Park sire used to date at Minnamurra, and why?
Oh, I think you probably even know this one. Whiskey's been. Whiskey was a great sire. We've seen it in the bulls that he's produced. We're seeing it here in the females that he's produced, and that's, once again, you ask every breeder that question, and it'll probably be their bull. But I know from our point of view, we've used an awful lot of semen and a lot of different bulls. The next one to him that's given us some great results with. See, I look at females all the time, Amy. That's the trouble. And Whiskey's done a mighty job, and the numbers that we've got on these females, when you look through our own program by his females, are excellent. And probably the next one in the female category that we've had great success with, that's Standalone. I haven't seen many top bulls produced by him, but by geez, he certainly produces females. But no, Whiskey's been an outstanding bull for us, and it's very hard to be not to be a bit one-sided when it comes to that.
That's perfectly understandable with regards to Whiskey. Where do you see the beef industry in 10 years' time, and what should we do now as an industry to either propel us towards that end point or change course?
It's positive. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we keep hearing all the time that, the population of the world keeps growing and they need protein, and red meat is the main protein. So, I mean, you would think it has to stay positive. I personally think, yes, I'm very confident that it's going to be, that it is going to be good. The Asian market is going to get stronger. There's no doubt about that. American market, well, Trump is playing around at the moment, but, they've got a job to supply their own domestic market over there now. So I can't see these tariffs causing a lot of trouble for very long, but definitely the Asian market is going to grow more and more. So I feel very confident about it in the future. I think one of the things I've seen over the years is that every 10 years or so, fashions change. I said, that's where these cattle will be good. We want meat to eat, good meat, good quality meat to eat. Like, don't chase fashions either. I think if you can stay on track, propelling us forward, I think with more and more measuring coming in, I think the great one and it'll have to get here one day, Amy, and soon, where they can pay on the quality of the carcass, of the whole carcass. It's very difficult at the moment, and I think when it comes in, that'll be a really major benefit to the industry. The good producer that's producing the right animal will then really get the benefits from it. It's hard to do it at the moment because, a lot of guys will go crook because, they've worked their butt off to breed these particular animals, and they'll put them in the sale yard, and another pen beside them look the same colour and everything, and they don't get any more money. And we know that bloke that's put all the work in, he's going to have, under that skin, he's going to be a better beast. There's going to be a higher yield. There's going to be all those type of qualities. So when the day comes that they can scan a carcass as it goes in and you get paid on the quality of that carcass, I think that will make a huge difference to the industry. That'll really propel people then to work on breeding what's under the skin more. I think that'd be the one major thing that would propel us forward a lot more when you're getting paid a premium for that good quality carcass, because otherwise your carcass gets cut up and gets pushed here, there and everywhere. They can pay, they give you all your data on the carcass and you're very excited about it, but you're not, you're still only getting your $7.10 a kilo for the one that's got a 67 index against the same one in the draft that's got a 57. That'll make a huge difference in the future, I feel.
You ran a top quality herd of 10,000 plus Angus cows prior to embarking on your Speckle Park journey at Minnamurra. What is it that you were looking for by integrating Speckle Park, and what have you learned along the way?
Oh, golly, we haven't got enough time to answer this question. Once again, we had a very, very, very good line of Angus cows. So I suppose we've been quite lucky as far as that's concerned with putting these bulls over them. But I just thought, once again, they're very similar styles of animals. If we could just, going on what I seen and what I learnt in Canada, if I could just bring that fat level down, 3 or 4 centimetres and lift that dressing percentage a bit over the amount of cattle that we were producing. I mean, if I lifted the dressing percentages, 3 or 4%, there's a lot of meat, an awful lot of meat. And that was basically what we started out to have a look at in that 5-year period that David said, well, we'll give it a try. And it worked. We can see that by those carcass results there. We achieved what we wanted to achieve, and that's why we're still in them, because they did everything we hoped that they'd do for us.
Excellent. Where do you think Speckle Park fit in the commercial Australian beef industry landscape?
They certainly fit in all this in our eastern states here. They're I think they certainly, at the moment, they certainly fit in as in that crossbreeding program, but in that hybrid vigour. There's a big place for them, Amy. We've seen them cross now with most British bred cattle, and I'll tell you, I'm very impressed where I've seen them across. We bought a line of Santa cows here while we were dealing a few. God, the Santa Gertrudis cross with them are just a magnificent, absolutely beautiful animal. they've got a great position. I mean, we've seen what the carcasses can do in their crossbreeding programs. I've just got so much confidence in them, I'm afraid. I really do feel there's a great place for them in our industry. There's all this southern country and moving right up. Anywhere you can run any British breed cattle, you can run these quite comfortably. And I think, well, as a guy said to us there one day, he said, you know, these are the Wagyus of the British breed, of the British breed world.
Can you explain that further, that comment?
They've got a natural marbling and they've got a meat-eating quality that no other animal seems to have. So if we want to try and push that marbling, we can get it higher. I personally think that middle of the range type marbling, which is a natural marbling with these cattle, that 2, 3, 4, just makes their meat exceptional. It can be, it's so flavoursome. It's a meat that you can virtually overcook and it's still moist. And that natural quality about their meat makes it extra special. There's no doubt about that.
And to be able to achieve this outstanding eating experience from a body that we can process at 300 kilos at 15 to 18 months old off grass,
yeah.
What an environmental story to match.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, I mean, I sold, we put a load of heifers, cull heifers that pre-tested empty through here just recently. Now, I wasn't feeding them to fatten them. They were only 18 months old, but they were in very good condition. They look well. We had heifers in there just straight off grass that marbled 3 and 4. That was amazing. I mean, the majority of them were sort of 1s and 2s, but there was, 4 or 5 of them marbled 3 and 4 now, and we hadn't really pushed them to over fat. So it's a natural quality in them that there's a real place for them.
As we start to wrap up our episode, what's the most important lesson you've learned in your career so far?
Don't chase fashions in the cattle industry. The most important lesson, I think, is if you're going into the cattle industry, you've got to go in with a purpose. You've got to know where you want to go, what you want to breed, who you're breeding it for, and stick to that. Or otherwise you finish up with nothing. And another thing that, you know, I like about these cattle is that in our country is that you can sell these cattle at every stage. A lot of people breed themselves into corners where they get stuck with 1 or 2 markets. Whereas these cattle, you know, when times get tough, you can sell them from weaners to yearlings to bullocks and fats. You can custom feed them yourself like we do when times get real tough. But yeah, the one thing I've definitely learned is don't chase fashions and don't swap and change. Get your objectives right, where you want to go, what you want to breed, and don't think it's going to happen overnight. It takes a long time.
Who has been your most important professional mentor?
I've had a lot of, I'm very lucky, I suppose. I've got quite a few blokes I'd call mentors, but probably Andrew Gubbins, I think. I mean, I just respected that man so much and what he achieved and his thoughts on the stud industry and breeding cattle for the market, for Australian conditions. Unfortunately, Andrew passed away here a couple of years ago, but the family are doing a wonderful job there still. But, besides my father, but Andrew probably, because I had no idea about the stud cattle game. I'm a commercial man, but I had a lot to do with Andrew and that's where I suppose what I'm trying to do now is produce cattle for the commercial industry. And he was the man that I thought was amazing. Yeah.
What is your favourite quote and why?
No, Dad always said to me, he said, work hard and play hard and put your mother up on a pedestal, son. And he said, and you'll live a good life. And I've given it a pretty bloody good shot. I've given it the best shot I can anyway, Amy. And he always told me, he always used to say, he said, I've never seen on a headstone yet died of hard work. So, they're only, I suppose they don't mean much to anybody else, but they mean a lot to me coming from my best mate. Yeah.
Excellent, Dennis. Well, Dennis, on behalf of the Speckle Park community, I really want to thank you, David, and the whole Minnamurra team for everything you've done to help demonstrate the commercial attributes of Speckle Park. I don't think people respect and show gratitude enough to just how much Minnamurra has helped to elevate Speckle Park to where it is today, and I'd certainly just want to say a massive thank you.
No, thank you, Amy. It's been a pleasure. I'm sorry I probably haven't answered a lot of their questions. There's a lot of them that a lot of those questions you can sit down and you talk about one of them for an hour.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Yeah. But no, thank you very much. And thank you for what you're doing for the breed too, mate. That you're doing a wonderful, wonderful job. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Dennis. Bye for now.
Okay, bye.